Greetings everyone, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, here to bring you another episode review from Season 5 of The Loud House. Today's episode is titled Fright Bite. First we'll discuss the plot, and then my thoughts and critiques with my final score. So, let's get right into it. The episode begins with Lucy and the Mortician's Club finishing the season finale to Vampires of Melancholia, and then they notice a mysterious person moving into their favorite abandoned house near the cemetery. Based on what they see, the kids assume he's an actual vampire, and they try to convince him to turn them into vampires too. However, the man ignores all their advances and appears to be convincing other people to become vampires, again based on what the kids see. Eventually, the club finds out the man and the people he had signing contracts were all part of the filming to the new season of Vampires of Melancholia. The episode ends with the kids getting the chance to make cameos for the show alongside the main star, Edwin. Well, that concludes the plot of the episode, so now we come to my thoughts and critiques. This was another one of those episodes in the series that falls under the category of jumping to the wrong conclusion. However, this one had the main cast not only jumping to the wrong conclusion, but they didn't do it with any sort of bad thoughts in mind. For example, the episode Cheater by the Dozen had Lincoln and Clyde assuming the worst about Bobby's shady actions. In this episode, Lucy and her friends assumed, I guess from their perspective, the best about this pale-skinned guy's shady actions. The light skin, the way he crosses his hands when he's confronted by the club, and the way his eyes are making sure no one is watching him throw away mirrors and coffin polish. I can see why the kids would make that kind of assumption. Speaking of the kids, we have to talk about the Mortician's Club. As far as these goth kids go, this was the closest they've ever come to reaching total goth status, and yes, I totally made that phrase up. By the way, there was something I picked up on during their time following that guy around the city. Remember in the episode Sandhassels where Haiku wondered if going to the mall would be fun? Well, there they were, walking through the mall and not being turned off by it. It's nice when a lesson from a previous season carries over into the next one. Maybe not so nice for Dante getting ketchup and lemonade in his contact lenses, but that's the price you pay for following a daywalker. Anyway, out of everyone in the club, Lucy in particular seemed to be the most excited about the impending transformation she thought she was going to undertake. After having many deep conversations with a bust of Edwin's head, on top of many fantasies about becoming a vampire, including the one she had in this episode, I can see why she would never want to watch Edwin's TV show following that life-changing bite, since she would be experiencing being undead every day. Her attempt to get her vein bitten was so painstakingly straightforward that it was actually pretty funny. Boris's attempt, not so much. That's when Lucy made an interesting point. The guy probably didn't want anything to do with them since he assumed they were already vampires based on their looks. I mean, really, can you blame him for thinking that? That's when they tried to go normie and it was just, wow. They were really struggling to act like normal kids and still prop themselves up as wannabe victims of a vampire. Their acting was so cringe, but it was oddly humorous. And don't even get me started on those clothes. Like, what even was that? Most of them dressed like adults in their 50s or something. Seriously, Morpheus and Persephone were wearing the kind of clothes their parents might wear. But I'm not gonna lie, Haiku's normie look was really cute. Sort of reminded me of an anime character. Not as convincing as Mrs. Bernardo's vampire wardrobe, but that's a different story entirely. So after their attempts at persuasion fail, they're just like, screw it, we'll just beg the guy to turn us into vampires. And that's when they burst through the door of the house and stumble upon what turns out to be a filming session. Weird how there was no security to stop people from walking straight onto the set, but whatever. It turned out the shady guy wasn't a real vampire, and neither were the people he was recruiting around Royal Woods. Before anyone questions why they didn't ask those randos what they were signing on that guy's clipboard, just remember one word: confidentiality. It's sort of like Mrs. Bernardo not wanting to break character when asked what she was doing inside that house. You can't just reveal the secrets of what's happening in media productions unless you're given consent. Curse you, non-disclosure Hollywood contracts! In spite of everything they went through, and I don't know if this is considered a forced happy ending, but I appreciated the director allowing the kids to replace the adults who were scheduled to make cameos during the show's production. On the one hand, it does seem like the kids indirectly robbed those other people of appearing on camera, and maybe that shady guy didn't want a bunch of inexperienced and annoying children to be a part of a professional television show. But on the other hand, it's noted by the director how these gloomy, creepy, and weird kids are real goths and not a bunch of regular people. Some might take that as an insult, but to the Morticians Club, that's a compliment. I guess you can't get any more authentic than these kids. Then again, this director thought Boris was the kid's grandfather, and yet Boris says he's only 9 years old and standing at probably 6, maybe 6.5 feet. I still can't get over that. I also can't get over whatever became of those bloody steaks that truck was delivering earlier in the episode. Yeah, I know we can use our imaginations and figure it out for ourselves, but it's not a big deal. And finally, the kids got to meet their TV idol, the guy who plays Edwin. Not only does he talk with an English accent when the cameras aren't rolling, but he seems to border along the edge of being a stereotypical snooty actor. But hey, at least the club weren't going total uber fanatic mode over him, especially Lucy. That was quite a surprise. And speaking of surprises, I'm shocked the writers forgot about a recurring Vom character like Griselda, but they remembered Tristan from the episode Fandom Pains. So I can at the very least respect the idea of bringing back a character I thought was going to be a one and done deal. One can only imagine how much fangirling Lori and Lenny would have been doing if they found out the show was coming to Royal Woods. Then again, there were no security guards surrounding the film area, so like I said, just use your imagination. Overall, this episode wasn't amazing, but it was still pretty fun to watch. Lucy and her friends wanted to be something they always wanted to be, and their cringy attempts to get what they wanted were worth a few laughs, especially with them wearing those normie clothes. Again, this was another storyline where everyone assumed something and it turned out to be nothing what they thought, but I give the story some credit for being a bit more original. That is to say, the kids assumed the best case scenario, which would be to their benefit, as opposed to assuming the worst case scenario, which would be a detriment to them. It was great seeing some callbacks to previous episodes, and if you think about it, being who they are had a good payoff by the end, from getting the chance to meet their favorite characters in person to getting the opportunity to appear on TV. Sounds like a win-win for everyone. With that said, I give Fright Bite an 8.5 out of 10. Well folks, that concludes my review of Fright Bite. While this wasn't Lucy's best episode of Season 5, it's an example of how if you want to repeat the wrong conclusion plot like we've seen in the past, this was a major upgrade from previous episodes that had the same kind of conflict. You may agree or disagree, but that's just how I see it. So what did you guys think of it? Love it? Hate it? Something you would add? Change? Keep it as it is? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe to this channel for the latest Loud House content. That's going to do it for me. I'll catch you guys for the next video, but until then, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, signing off. Peace out, home slices.